Okay, I've only got a little bit of science tonight, okay? Only a little bit. I know I've been overloading you on the science. But I really wanted to whet your appetite so that if you're not educated on these things, you might take the opportunity to educate yourself and in turn educate your friends and family, particularly your children. So I just have a little bit of science, and I have a lot of beautiful theology. Okay, so hope you can hang with me. I noticed I preached pretty long last week. It's always my intent not to over-preach your endurance, and so I'll try to do better. I'll try to do better this week. 1857, some guys dug up a partial skeleton in Dusseldorf, Germany. Similar skeletons were found in Africa and Asia as well. These skeletons were given the common name of Neanderthal. They were purported to be the missing link between ape and man. Oops, in 1908, they found a Neanderthal skeleton buried in a suit of armor in a tomb in Poland. I mean, you got a huge problem with the whole evolutionary scenario when you have found an ape man buried in a suit of armor. Okay? Yeah, key problem. Neanderthals were nothing more than mere human beings with unusual skeletal features, accentuated by rickets, arthritis, and vitamin D deficiencies. While Neanderthal is still, in some textbooks and museums, represented as a subhuman species, as one scholar said, Neanderthal was nothing more than a card-carrying member of the human race. 1892, Eugene Du Bois found a skull fragment, a thigh bone and 3 teeth laying at least 50 feet apart from each other, and announced he had found an upright ape man. This find became known as Java Man. Oops, 28 years later, Du Bois admitted that he had found human skeletal remains in the same geological stratum he failed to mention. And Java Man wasn't a missing link at all. He was a run-of-the-mill human being. 1912, Charles Dawson showed up at the British Museum with some bones, some teeth, and primitive implements he said he found at Piltdown, Sussex. Experts claim these remains were 500,000 years old. The bones were held as a missing link, given the name Piltdown Man. Piltdown Man hit all the textbooks and museums. Over 500 doctoral dissertations were written about the Piltdown Man. Oops. 40 years later, the whole thing was exposed as a gigantic hoax. 1922, Harold Cook found a single tooth in Nebraska. Experts said it was 2 to 5 million years old. It was pronounced as a missing link between ape and man. Guess what I'm going to say? Oops. 6 years later, it was discovered that it was nothing more than the tooth of an extinct wild pig. Okay? 1927, famous Canadian Davidson Black unearthed a single tooth and later a part of a skull which he believed, quote, had characteristics of an ape-like transitionary form, unquote. He named his find Peking Man. He too hit the textbooks in the museum. Oops. French paleontologist Marceline Boulay, director of Museum of Natural History in Paris, determined that the much ballyhooed Peking Man was nothing more than a monkey. 1959, Louis and Mary Leakey found a skull in East Africa. It was nicknamed by the news media as Nutcracker Man, touted as yet another missing link. Interestingly, this will be informative for you, Leakey believed Nutcracker Man was at least 600,000 years old. In 1961, the University of California dated him at 1.75 million years old. In 1968, he was dated again at 10,000 years old. So much for carbon dating, right? Oops. Later, Leakey had to withdraw this extravagant claim of finding the missing link. It was found that the skull belonged to an extinct monkey. Last one, just for your entertainment. 1974, Donald Johanson found a tiny skeleton in northern Africa. He claimed to be over 3 million years old. He claimed that it was the first ape to walk upright, and this entity became nicknamed, it was nicknamed Lucy. I'm sure you've heard of Lucy. Actually, I saw an article on Lucy about a week ago. She's still hanging around. Yet another so-called missing link between primitive apes and mankind. Oops. Johansen finally admitted that the knee joint cited as proof that Lucy walked upright was found, get this, 2 miles away and 200 feet lower in the strata. Now, these are the things that people don't tell you. These are things that media doesn't tell you and academia doesn't tell you. Johansen actually got cornered on a stage in a question and answer period, and he finally admitted that he found the knee joint 2 miles away. I love what theologian John Blanchard says about these kinds of statements from evolutionists. When they find the so-called missing link, he said this: "These are good examples of the way in which articulate evolutionists have used popular media presentation to perfect the art of passing off guesswork as fact. This is how a stab in the dark acquires the status of dogma." I hope you're hearing this. I've been laying this groundwork for you for about 6 or 7 weeks. And if you're not educated, you need to get caught up. Some of you have probably been indoctrinated. I studied some of this stuff, believe it or not, way back when I was in middle school. Some of us have been indoctrinated, friends. Some of us have been indoctrinated. Now, I'm just appealing to you to go out and read, go out and study for yourself. The only thing that can be definitely said about macroevolutionary assertions regarding the missing link between ape and man is that they are emphatically still missing. There are none. They've never been found, nor will they ever be found. I'm sure that most of you know this. We're not just missing one link in the evolutionary chain. We're missing how many? Millions of them. There's never been a universally agreed upon transitionary form found in the fossil record, not between invertebrates and vertebrates, fish and amphibians, amphibians to reptiles, or reptiles to birds. There are no transitionary forms in the fossil record. I know you've been taught differently, but that is the hard fact. Stephen Jay Gould, late Harvard professor and renowned Darwinist, called the lack of transitionary forms in the fossil record the trade secret of paleontology. Evolutionist Jeremy Rifkin is a little more blunt. Listen to this. This is great. What the record shows in nearly a century of fudging and finagling by scientists to conform to Darwinian notions, all to no avail. Today, the millions of known fossils stand as a visible, ever-present reminder of the paltriness of the arguments and the overall shabbiness of the theory that marches under the banner of evolution. Now, that's an evolutionist, scientist speaking there. I want you to understand that. And I'm just going to share one more time my most favorite quote from all my studies on this stuff. Louis Bourneur, the director of research at the French National Center of Scientific Research in Paris, he said, you probably remember, evolutionary theory is a fairy tale for grown-ups. So, let's move on from fairy tales to some nonfiction. Let's open our Bibles to Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. We arrive at verse 26 in Genesis chapter 1. Everything's prepared. Everything's perfect. Paradise is ready. The 20 billion times 6 trillion stellar light show is in place. A beautiful, pleasing, comfortable, plentiful planet has been prepared. A vast array of fascinating creatures are present to enjoy. And God has reached the apex of His created purpose. He is ready to create man. He is ready to create the creature that He will make in His own image. All that God has created prior to verse 26 has been with mankind in mind. I want to share with you one more scientist quote, and then I'm done. And then it's just beautiful theology, okay? But I want to share this with you. I just want to share this quote with you. Michael Denton, he's a molecular geneticist. He basically is saying what I just said. Listen to his words. No other concept ever imagined by man can equal in boldness or audacity the the great claim that all the starry heavens, every species of life, every characteristic of reality exists for mankind.